Yo, episode one of the As Played podcast. My name is Taylor Hart. This is going to be a podcast for everyone who's viewing um, on, poker players and life and the decisions we make that lead us to where we are now. This is Max Young. If for whoever's watching that doesn't know Max Young, he's been in the game for a long time, professional poker player for a long time, tournaments, cash, everything. Um, Max, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Taylor. I'm happy to be here and I'm honored to be your first guest. And I also wanted to comment, I just realized what you said the name of the show was As Played, which I find very fitting and entertaining as that's something that I have said to you and you always laugh when or maybe that's something you said to me when I'm telling you about a hand history or something. As played, it's like, oh, you probably messed this one up if you're saying as
Yeah,
played.
it's like anyone who's familiar with poker knows, like, you tell someone a hand history at a tournament break, they talk about it and then they're like, "What do you think?" And then you commonly come across something like, you know, "I don't like what you did pre-flop, but as played." And it's just like we make bad decisions, we make good decisions, whatever. But we're here now. We're
Yeah.
here now. And what are we gonna do now? Like what are we gonna do now? I think, you know, I've I picked you for this first episode, and I've been thinking about doing this for a very long time. Because my favorite thing in life is to talk to people and connect with people and learn their stories, because everyone has very interesting stories, and they're very rarely shared. And so I picked you because I know you're ready to, just be yourself. Like I don't want anyone on this show who isn't ready to be themselves and that knows in their heart that that's the good stuff. When you're yourself and you're ready to be just honest about your experience, and we've known each other. We go back to share with the people watching. We go back. I think we first played, correct me if I'm wrong, in like around 2012, maybe 2013.
I was going to guess earlier than that.
Earlier, it may have been earlier. At like Aces,
When did
right?
you first play?
I first played when I was set. You were supposed to be 18 because Aces didn't sell alcohol yet, so they allowed 18 and older. But I was 17, so that would have been 2009.
Okay, so you had the fake ID and you're 17, passing it off as 18.
I don't even think I had to do that. I think I just walked in and they may have not even ID'd me. And I can say that because they're not business anymore. But yeah, we may have played in like 2010 just a little bit. And I remember my first images of you playing. I remember vividly, like yesterday. We didn't talk, but I would observe you and I'd be like, man, like this guy knows what he's doing. I was just a young kid. I was just trying to figure it out. And you always brought such intensity. You always brought such thoughtfulness. I always admired, and I've told you this before, I've always admired how even through the calm and boring and excruciating times for me, that's how I explain it, of the game, where nothing is really happening, you're in it. You're engaged. You challenge yourself to find things to keep yourself engaged.
Yeah,
You know,
you have to, I think. I mean, and it's easier these days with all the phones and everything to distract yourself and not pay attention to everything. But the edge that you're giving up if you're not thinking about every hand that everybody else is involved in, it's just huge. You're not
mm,
watching the guy that's in there with something that he shouldn't have, and then you end up in a hand against him 10 minutes later and you don't know that he's capable of having this wide open range.
mm,
That's your bad. So,
yeah.
and people today are rarely paying attention. So if you are one of the guys that does, I think it gives you a massive edge.
Hey man. Oh, oh, don't talk about me like that, brother. I'm right here. You're looking at me in the eyes.
Obviously, something good has been going on because quite the heater yourself.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but like that's something I'm constantly I think it's really interesting reflecting at different times and like whoever's path on the things that they needed the most work on and the things that came very natural and easy for them. And for me currently, and for me throughout my whole time playing poker, and it's funny because it relates to whatever I'm doing. I could be playing pickleball, I could be doing having conversations, whatever. It's like if something in my external reality is not, it doesn't ping the right things for me to easily be engaged. I struggle with staying engaged. Um, and something that's always been very easy. For me, I've always explained this to friends. Chaos is calm, and calm is chaos for me.
Okay.
So like lots of things happening, people doing weird things at the table, like the game being crazy, conversations here, conversations there. Oh my God, I'm my heaven. I
Yeah.
couldn't be happier. I couldn't be more in the game. Things are very normal in convention. The conversation isn't interesting. No one's getting stacked. No one's like having experiencing pain. Oh my God, that's hell. Hell.
You want the pain.
Oh my, yes.
I've never
What's
seen
the
someone
game without pain?
pain more than you in
I mean,
regards
what's
to
the,
poker.
sorry?
I said I've never seen someone who loves the pain more than you with regards to poker. Whether it's you experiencing it or you watching somebody else experience it, whether that somebody else is me or somebody else, who knows?
Because it's only good.
Yeah,
It's only good because we're playing a game, right? Like, this isn't life or death.
of
Like,
course.
this isn't, so, like, we're playing a game, and it's like, for me personally, I only learn by, like, it's like you hear the analogy of, like, touching the hot stove, yeah?
Yeah.
It's like I need to touch the hot stove about 7 times, and then I start thinking, like it's
Maybe
like I
not.
touched the hot stove once, and I'm like, I need to touch it again. Like, wait, did it really burn my hand? Um, and so I know when I see other people experiencing that, I know that it's an inflection point of like, you can take what's going to help you from it, or you can wash it all away. If you wash it all away, good luck to you. It's going to be very, very challenging, I think.
Yeah.
How do you experience pain?
I mean, I think that as poker players, everything that we're sort of coached and told is that we are supposed to just not feel very much. And
Hmm.
we want to be a robot basically. And you take a beat and it's on to the next. You don't feel that one or the one after or the one before. But, I feel them stacking on each other when times are tough. And I've
Hmm.
gotten way better about that, as you obviously know, because you knew me
Hmm.
in the early days when, I'd lose a hand and I'd always have something to say about it. But for the most part, I've fixed that. I'm always striving to do better in that area, but I still feel it.
Yeah.
I still feel it all. And
Yeah.
when things are really going awry, and you've had a bad 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, year, or whatever, that's when I feel it the most. It feels like
Yeah.
each additional one adds on to the one before it.
I have always admired this about you, and I think like, you've always throughout the years, it's not been hard for me to, it's not even been a challenge for me to have empathy for you. Like even when, in the early days you may have been like complaining about something or whatever, it's never been challenging, and I think I found the reason. I think the reason is because the way that you are you, like you are going to feel what you're going to feel. You're not going to lie to yourself.
Yeah,
You're not going to lie to yourself. Like you're just, it's and you get what you get. And like I've always loved that about you, and I've always been able to see, like, even when maybe your best self externally isn't being shown, I can always see your heart, and I always know you're a good dude.
I
um
appreciate
and
that.
and so it's like when I see it, that's why when you go through pain and I see you looking stern at the table, I just think it's the most, it just brings me so much joy. I'm gonna be honest with you, it does.
Well, I will say, I remember in the early days, taking a beat and I'd look up at you and just be laughing your ass off. And I remember just seething about it. But I will give you this credit. And for one, looking back, it must have been hilarious. One. And two, that you also laugh when you take a beat. And you have a great attitude about it, something that I'm constantly striving to be to be better at. I mean, two people that come to mind that sort of laugh off every beat they take are you and Steven Song, and that's just like the such a great way to be. I
Yeah.
would think that, and you told me you thrive in these moments where you're experiencing a downswing, whereas I start doubting myself and doubting everything I'm doing and wondering, you know, how long is it going to take me to get back to the point where I don't make mistakes like this, or when can I just win a hand that I'm supposed to win? Those types of thoughts. But yeah, I mean, when I'm my best self, I would love to be able to just laugh it off when I take a bad one in a spot that's important to me.
Yeah.
Might as well. If you do
And,
everything right,
and it's because it's just one moment in time.
exactly.
It's just one moment in time. And it's just like, I think that, that remembering that is, I'm not going to take credit and be like, oh, I've done so much work to remember it's one moment in time. Like, no, it's just everyone has stuff that's easy for them, and everyone has stuff that's, hard for them. Like the cost of me remembering everything, the good, the bad, everything in between, remembering and having the internal truth that it's one moment in time and it's not a big deal. There's a cost to that because, I I don't do very well, thinking about the future, like and building for the future and all the good things that come with that. I think there's two sides of the coin always. And so like those are the things that are naturally harder for me because I'm a right now guy.
Yeah,
I'm a right now guy and like it's I think being present is not hard for me, but I think having patience is hard for me. It's That's been something that slowly and organically um I've gotten better at. It's still hard though. It's still very hard for me. I'll just fire away. Like
yeah,
and I've gone broke so many times because I've just like it's just like right now. It's like right now and having the foresight of like you know it's a long game was very challenging for me to start thinking about.
yeah. I haven't really struggled with that myself so much, except for in the very beginning. It was always easier for me to lose more than I should online than it was live. It feels like a number on a screen as opposed to you're actually digging into your pocket, and the process is, a
Yeah,
lot more
yeah,
cumbersome live, and you feel it more.
yeah,
So I learned that lesson early on online, and lost my whole online bankroll.
yeah,
And I did it the way everybody probably does. You're winning in the games that you're playing, and you're playing the right stakes for your bankroll, and then you go on a little losing streak and you want to win it back quickly, so you play bigger instead of
yeah.
doing what you should do and playing smaller. And I learned that lesson. And after I learned it, I fortunately never had to learn it again. Um, so I'm grateful for that.
What a life. Make a mistake once and learn from it. I don't think I'll
I
ever
wish I could say
experience
that about
that.
every mistake, but just with that one. I think part of it is just my nature. It makes me uncomfortable. Like I feel physically uncomfortable at the thought of putting myself in the danger zone bankroll
Yeah,
wise.
yeah,
And so I just always try to avoid it. It's one of those things. Another thing that sort of reminds me of, it's just kind of a feeling that has kept me away from that before I understood proper bankroll parameters and all that. When I first started learning poker, before I even knew about the importance of position, I felt it in terms of the closer I was to the button, the safer I felt.
Hmm.
Nobody had even told me. I'm just
Hmm.
talking early, early days of poker. It was almost like the button was this protective thing. And I just felt like, oh, I can do a little more here from this seat just because I feel safe right now.
Hmm. So intuitively, so correct me if I'm wrong. This is what I'm hearing. The mechanics of that intuitively from early on, you felt safer when you felt like you were in advantageous positions.
Yeah, with my bankroll and with respect to the game itself and strategy and all
So
that.
to flip that, did you feel early on, did you feel like uncomfortable if you knew and felt like you were in disadvantaged positions?
Yes, definitely.
Did would what was your experience working through that? Because and I know like the game is the game, And sometimes you just have to be in disadvantaged positions, and you
Yeah.
have to try your best to work your way through it. What was your process throughout that? Like accepting that, and then like trying to improve on that.
I guess, I mean, the prime example would just be moving up in stakes and
Hmm.
feeling, instead of feeling in control, playing in a higher stakes game, and making thoughtful decisions, I'd feel a little bit out of control
Hmm.
and maybe not think through every spot as well and feel a little bit more desperate and, just, if you move up prematurely, just not feeling comfortable and having all those other things happen. So you're not only not feeling the best, but now you're not playing the best either. And the way that I sort of dealt with it is dabbling, flirting with moving up, like sitting in the game for a little bit, maybe short stacking initially or playing short sessions. And then if I did lose at those higher stakes, instantly dropping back down and playing a bunch of the lower stakes until
Hmm.
I won all that money back
Hmm.
and then trying again. But my version of shot taking was so much smaller than the versions I read about, where people are just putting their whole bankroll on the line. For me, it would be I'm not comfortable losing over $800, and now I'm sitting in it, going from a 1-2 game to a 2-5 game, and it's
Hmm.
scary because
Yeah.
now I could lose 1,000 in one hand, and I
Yeah.
used to not want to lose over 800 in a session. So then,
Yeah.
if I had that hand happen, I'm done. I'm done for the day with that game, and I'll come back tomorrow, play the smaller game. If it takes me 4 or 5 days, that's fine. I'll win it back, and then, or longer, I'll win it back, get to the point where I'm comfortable again, shot take again,
Yeah.
and then hopefully book a win, get to the point where I've put more and more hours in, and finally actually feel like, hey, maybe I belong in these higher stakes, and maybe now I feel comfortable bluffing all in. To me,
Yeah.
that's the real sign that you're in a game that you should be in. If you can't put your whole stack in the middle as a bluff, then you're not comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
You're playing too high stakes, or
Yeah.
you're just getting acclimated to those new stakes. Because
Yeah.
that's like something that I still fight with today in regards to cash games. I never felt it nearly as much in tournaments, but
Hmm.
in regards to cash games, definitely.
Yeah, it's that's such that last part that you said is so relatable because been there, know what it feels like, know exactly what it feels like. I think when I hear you talk about what you just did, I think like it's really cool that you were able to know, like, to tie into the being in an setting yourself to be in an advantageous position or the best position you can be to perform, like in game and before you sit down. And it's like you I think that probably more so than I did, even in the very start, I think you had a better sense and it came easier to you. To that was really crucial and that was important. And that it only throughout time got more precise and it got more accurate in terms of like the things you need to do in your headspace and how the games you need to play to keep yourself in that good zone for you to perform well. For me, my experience was like, what's the biggest thing I can play, and let's see how it goes. And I think that both, I don't think there's a right answer. I'm going to be honest with you. As long as you learn from it in the right way eventually. It's like I think that if you don't learn from it based on personality types, everyone's journey is going to be different based on your personality types, based on your tolerance for pain in different areas because it's not just can I get stacked 3 times and still play well. It's also like your tolerance for pain in terms of like I think of, when the game's boring, I'm experiencing pain. Like,
No,
actually, when the game is boring, I am in pain. I would rather get stacked 3 times than be break even in a very, very boring game.
yeah. I mean, I've gotten to that point in some boring games where, especially if it's, you came to play a bigger game and only the smaller game is running and you're playing the game and maybe you got stacked once and now you have like feel like you have no shot to win it back, and the game is moving slow. People are giving no action. Yeah, and the conversation is not exciting. All that stuff. I've felt that type of pain where it's just like, especially if the game is moving slow, people are
Yeah.
taking actions on them, and they don't even know it's their turn. That kind of thing. That gets to me. Definitely.
Yeah. Hey, I'm curious about this. We were kind of talking a little bit, and we have before about, us as poker players. We're poker players, and there's so much content out there today. It's
Right.
2025. I talked to my dad a couple weeks ago, and I've talked to my friends about this concept. I think it is the easiest time in the world
To get good.
to get good.
Yeah.
And I think it's the hardest time in the world to get great. Because it's to get good, right? It's like you understand things on a fundamental level, and all of these, all these concepts and these situations, and you intake information and solvers, et cetera, et cetera. To get great, it's not about that. And
Yeah.
you and I both know it's not about that. And it's more of a journey of figuring out yourself, figuring out your fears, figuring out what puts you in a good place when you're in a bad place, all of these things, and how that affects your decisions in game and off the table. And I think that it's like super interesting. What's your take on that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It's sort of my mind quickly goes back to when I started playing and that stuff wasn't there, and the types of thought processes you had to use, or information that you were able to gather in order to get better. Um, there was some stuff out there, there were some books out there. It was nice to have sort of a baseline. That's the way I approached it. I started, I think I started with a book about sit and goes. I mean, I started playing initially and I battled like a maniac, and I did not know what I was doing, but I was in there trying to win every hand. And then I went from that to so tight because I read a book of, about, how you should play. And I think it said something like in the early stages of a sit and go, the weakest opening hand on the gun is like tens in terms of pairs and stuff like that. I was
Yeah,
like, my mind
yeah,
was just
yeah,
blown at that. But anyway, so I started out crazy loose and then got really tight. And then slowly, as I gathered information, was able to open my game up. And basically, you had to kind of use a lot of logic and intuition of your own in order to get better. And now, with all this information that's out there, I think for that reason, like you said, it's easy to get good. But if you don't have those critical thinking skills, and if you can't gather information by watching the table and extrapolate things that you won't get from a lab, then you're going to miss out on a lot of stuff. And if you don't know the exploits, or you don't understand the player type because you haven't battled against these other players that play similarly to whoever it is you're up against, again, you're going to be at a little bit of a disadvantage, or at least not as profitable as somebody who has experience in those spots and has some intuition. Even if everything you've studied says, hey, you should do this thing, maybe your previous experience is going to tell you to do the opposite thing. And maybe that's like the difference in being good and great.
yes,
So,
yes. And those are the most important spots.
yeah.
Like
Like
those are
we had a
just,
fun conversation about that in Florida. This, what was it, January?
yeah, January or February.
And since that conversation, both of us have gone on massive heaters. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's regarding that, but maybe it helped put us both in the right kind of headspace you need to have to win.
Yeah, I mean it's it doesn't necessarily lead to success, but it's a necessary thing. Just being in the right space, right? It's a necessary thing, or at least extremely helpful to maximize whenever times you're getting good runs of variance and good card distribution and all of these things. Like it's just going to be helpful.
Sure.
Like and that's why I think both of us these days, we're very selective on who we spend time with. And that's become something that's very, very important to me because, like, I just, I, there, I love talking about poker, getting in the weeds of things, but like, I don't want to talk about like, oh, you lost this flip, or oh, this guy's an idiot, or oh, this guy's a clown, or I'm just, please, like,
Yeah,
can we talk about something interesting, please?
the bigger picture or
Like,
one hand that
and
yeah,
getting in the weeds of things, like, what were you thinking? Like, what you were, you know, I had this conversation with a couple friends recently, and it was talking about a hand. I'm not going to say the names. It was talking about a hand of a player, well-known player, and it was one hand history. And I have a separate take on when people look at one hand history. I'm just like, guys, you're really going to look at one hand history and you're going to put a pretty heavy judgment on this. I have an opinion about that too. I think it's
yeah.
absolutely insane. Um,
Oh, you
but
mean you're going to judge the player based on their take on one hand?
well, I not even their take, just like a printed hand history, so you don't even get their take.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like I will. We were talking about we were talking about the hand, and they were saying it's bad. And yes, in a vacuum, fundamentally, agree 100% wasn't good. But I always, whenever I hear a hand, it's easy to find the bad. It's easy to find the bad. So like in a hand that's like unconventional, why would you go there first? If it's easy to find the bad, why wouldn't you force yourself to find the good first?
That makes a lot of sense to me.
So like if someone opens a hand that's never an open, why don't you force yourself just as as a thought
That's
experiment
why.
on your own to be like, oh, maybe he thinks the big blind massively under defends in this spot. Maybe he feels like the people behind, in an ICM spot, if he's off 20, will respect his open so much that he feels like he can get away with this in an advantageous way. And then the easy stuff isn't even hard to find. Challenge yourself to find the hard first.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I actually, I think it's a good way to look at anybody's approach because somebody could be doing everything wrong, but they might be doing one thing right that you never thought of. And if you watch them play, you say, "Wow, they're kind of like getting away with all this stuff, and they're exploiting this guy in this way." And I never really thought about that before.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something to that, but also got to be careful not to do this, which this guy's
Yes.
clearly doing. So
Yes. And it's like these things aren't created equal. Like if you do, there are many. Did you ever play Madden when you were younger, or like any
uh,
video games
a
with
little bit
ratings?
with
So
what
like
with
these
rating.
games have ratings, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so this is how I think about the game. There are many different aspects of the game, and some people are very good at this and very poor at this, and very good at this and very poor at this, and not everything is created equal. It's like if you're a poker player that's always playing tournaments and you're very, very good at 200 big blind poker,
Sure.
how much is that going to benefit you?
I mean, it'll help you in the early stages, but
And how much do the early stages matter?
we have differing opinions.
Yeah,
But I think they matter a lot.
yes, yes. Okay, so
In the early
so so
stages.
there's a mix of opinions here based on those things. But I think, would you agree that, like tournament poker
Mhm.
conventionally is
Yeah.
like, gonna be often played like 50 and below, 60 and below for
Sure. And
for a
I
big
would
chunk of the
also,
tournament.
yes, of course. And I would also agree that the later stages are more important than the early stages. However, I think that especially when you're playing soft tournaments, playing those early stages just increases your chances of being able to play those later stages at all and also with a big stack.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
that's why I think they're important. But
I agree
obviously,
with
the later stages are more important than the early stages
I agree
by a
with that
lot.
take. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I think, like I think that people like to think about to go back to the point on like not everything is the same, right? Like not all your attributes that you have in poker are created equal. I think that people like to assume that they are without even knowing. And so I think that, people don't like to get in the weeds of like, okay, this player is having a lot of success, but I've played with them, 5 times and they do X terribly, but they're not having an understanding of they're doing Y so well that they're making so much money from it that yes, if they improve their X, they would make even more money, but they're doing Y so well that it's like that's why they're crushing.
And sometimes the X that looks so bad plays into the Y a little bit.
Yes, yes,
You
a
know, like
hundred
you
percent.
could use Lowry as an example. There are definitely some hands you could pick up of his that you would say, "What is he doing here?" But part of that, he's in there fighting with all these
Yes,
hands that he shouldn't have. But
yes,
because of that, people have a hard time folding to him, or they'll go crazy on a later street and he'll know right where he's at and he'll win huge pots, or he's accumulating the blinds in
yes.
between and he's getting away with stuff he shouldn't get away with. And so, the X could look awful on paper, but I think it's a big part of the reason why he's able to do what he does.
In my experience, people don't like to understand the method of the madness, specifically when it's very different than theirs.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that I always challenge myself to, you know, it's just the overarching topic of staying curious. If I'm not staying curious, and I'm not trying to be in a space of like very often learning, I'm gonna quit the game. Like I'm just not gonna like I'm not in this game for money, and then this is another topic that, is comes to mind. Like, um, when you think about your relationship with poker, and this is gonna be an open-ended question for you to answer however way you choose. When
Mm.
you think about your relationship with poker, how it started, in the middle, and where it's at now, how would you explain that?
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess if we went back to where it started, or even before where it started, I just grew up with siblings and a dad who loved to play games. And my mom got in there a little bit too on some family game nights, played Monopoly, Risk, backgammon, really little checkers, of course, chess, all that stuff. And my dad tried to teach me a lesson at a young age about how gambling was bad, and that's when we started playing backgammon, and we still play to this day. But the first year he tried to teach me this lesson, I think I was 11 or 12, and I won a few thousand off him in the span of a summer. So, lesson not learned. But in regards to poker, I kind of told you a little bit about the beginning, but I started um, in college. It was just for fun. I wanted to win every hand. I want like I, the competitive nature I have made me just want to get in there. And then when I started to realize that, hey, this doesn't just have to be for fun. This could be at least a source of auxiliary income. Then I started to focus much more on the bigger picture, how I could approach the game in a way to make some money or at least be profitable. It was never really about my hourly when I started. It was about how can I be profitable? How can I beat this game? How can I make a little bit of money? And I played the lowest stakes you can possibly play live. I mean, it's like thinking about it now, it sounds ridiculous, but I was playing, you probably did as well at Aces, but I was playing games at American Legions, they have some mooses in Oregon. I played there, $40
Mm-hmm.
buy-in tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes I would volunteer to deal so
Mm-hmm.
that at the end of the night, regardless of whether I cashed or not, I'd usually get more than my buy-in back in tips,
Yeah,
so I
yeah,
could free roll the whole
yeah.
thing. And I just approached it in a way that it was, another way to make a little bit more money. And I really wanted to win. I've always wanted to win any game that I played, but slowly it sort of evolved into, it evolved into me getting to the point that I realized, hey, I could only do this and quit everything else, and then just this I can get better at this game this way, or I can make more money doing this, or I mean, part of it was just the excitement of it. And tournaments, cash games are fun. We both know that, but and you tend to have a blast when you're playing cash. I love you're laughing all the time, especially in the Portland poker rooms, always having beers, having a good time.
Hmm.
But there's something extra special about tournaments. Just that idea that you could have this win. In
Yeah.
most of the tournaments that you play, it's a big chunk of money that you can win. And yeah, it's hard to win, but in the early days for me, I literally thought I was going to win every tournament I played.
Mm.
Not that I thought, I'll win every tournament I play for the next year, but every time I sat down, I thought I was going to win. And that's a good way to be.
Special. Yeah, I
I
mean
wish,
it's
I wish I could consistently be that way, but I mean, I've started to feel like that again lately.
yeah, yeah. I
So,
think what is today, currently,
yeah.
2025 max? What's your relationship with poker? How do you view poker?
I mean, I view it differently because of the fact that I've experienced both ends of the spectrum now. I was very fortunate when I started out in regards to results, and things went smoothly for me from the get-go, basically, once I started taking it seriously. In many ways, at least, I consistently won. I never had a massive hit to my bankroll. The one thing that was tough is I tended to take summers off in the early days and sort of have to start over in the fall and rebuild my bankroll. So that was a little bit tough,
Hmm.
but everything else was pretty smooth. And in regards to tournaments, I did it the way I think I would recommend to anyone. I played mostly cash. I probably played 80% cash and 20% tournaments once I started playing full time for a living. And it really smooths out the variance. Obviously, Portland is one of the better places in the world to play in that regard if you are going to be grinding small stakes cash, just because of the fact that we were playing in poker rooms where you'd pay a $10 cover and that was it. It's 20 now, big deal. But back then it was 10 and no rake, so
Yeah.
you certainly can't beat that. But yeah, I was fortunate in terms of variance in the tournaments that I did play, and but now I've had those bad years.
Yeah.
I've had those years where I've really slugged it out all year long. I went to the softest stops. I spent a bunch of money on travel. I got coaching. I tried to absorb as much new information as I could, and still I just felt like I was getting my head bashed in on the felt. So instead of just having everything go, swimmingly for me, I've experienced both sides of that now. So at least I understand some of the pain that can come with the game more than
Yeah.
just the short term loss of one hand here or there. So my relationship with poker is I guess I would say I truly love the game. I think it's always a challenge. I think you have the opportunity to consistently build on all the knowledge that you've been able to gain over time. You have the opportunity to learn from every mistake you've ever made, but still, we're human. We'll make the same mistake again and again and again, and maybe you avoid it 9 times out of 10, but that 1 out of 10, you knew not to do it,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you still
Yeah.
do
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it. But I'm better with the beats. I'm better with just appreciating when I'm actually running well, and it's not just thinking I'm the best.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah.
I realize that it's a tough game. It's a tough way to make a
Oh
living.
God.
It's 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 not. When I first started, it seemed like this dreamy thing to do, and now I know what it's really all about. And it's exhausting. It's testing mentally, physically, financially, all these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
But I'm still here,
Yeah.
and I still love it. And I think you
Yeah.
have to love it if you really want to play this game.
Oh
'Cause
God. Like it's, yes. I agree with everything you said. I think for me, um to be on I could do many, many different things in life. To be honest with you. I could. Um and I would be, I'd love it for different reasons, like because I say this because I'm not in love with the theory, the strategy, the mechanics of the actual game of poker. I'm not. I wish I was, but I'm not. What I am in love with is how the game has forced me to change in all of the best ways. It has forced me to change in all of the best ways. It has shown me my insecurities. It has shown me what I'm scared of. It has shown me what that feels like when I'm playing. I always know when I'm scared. I always do. I get visceral feelings in my body. I get, you know, it changes your external reality. It really does. When you're scared and versus when you're in a good place. And when the feeling of when I'm in a hand and I'm wanting someone to do something, or I'm wanting someone to have this kind of hand. The feeling of want for me, oh, never in a good place.
Yeah.
The feeling of this person can do whatever they choose, and I'm confident enough and and in the right space to I will respond to the best way that I think comes to me.
Yeah.
That's the good stuff.
Yeah. No, it's I've actually one guy who puts a lot of information out there who I really respect, obviously, is Phil Galfond, and that's just something that he talks about a lot. One of the things that he mentions is that when you're having any of these feelings that aren't productive,
Hmm.
it's a waste of mental bandwidth.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, if you're thinking about what card you want to come on the river, what hand you're hoping your opponent has, instead of thinking of, okay, if if this card comes on the river, what is the optimal action I can take? And you only focus on that, which is much easier said than done, I will say. I've gotten better at it, but I still wish for things. You want to see your flush get there, you want to see whatever. But anyway, he says if you don't waste the mental bandwidth on that and you focus on what you should be doing, you're just going to be one step ahead of your opponents at all time and at all times, and that's sort of the way you want to be. And it's kind of
100%.
helped me have a better outlook on the whole thing. So
And it's like to go deeper into that for me, it's been all about not necessarily because like what Galfon says, 100% true, agree 100%. For me, that's been crucial for me is when I start thinking in my all my experiences when my thought process is unproductive, I always think why. I never let it slip from me. I always think when and why do I feel those things? And when I'm in a good place, when and why am I in a good place? And that's it's the game has forced me to do that. The game has forced me to understand myself um so well that like I because I need to it's not just good enough for me to understand how what's productive and what's unproductive. That's not helpful for me. For me personally, I can't just be like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense. I'm going to do that." I can't do that. I need to understand why what are the mechanisms going inside me based on my past experiences and my past trauma, etc., that are putting me in a place where I'm emotionally unregulated to the extent of I'm all these unhelpful things are sifting through my mind.
yeah, well, it's hard to make room for the helpful things if you have all these unhelpful things in the way, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And I mean, this is something I've put some thought into lately, but I tend to act quickly and prefer to act quickly. I think I need to be taking a little bit more time, but still, part of the reason why I like to act quickly is because I want to trust my first instinct.
Yes.
And sometimes, they say the whole thing, think long, think wrong. Um, that's very true for me sometimes.
Have you ever heard the saying, and I'm butchering this saying, but like um have you ever heard someone talk about, you want the truths that you believe, you want them to be tested to the maximum extent so that at the end of that experience, you're even more confident in those truths? It's not like I butchered the saying, but the concept of like relating to what you just said is like when I think of what you just said, you want to trust your first instinct, yes?
Yeah, definitely.
But if you're more thoughtful and you force yourself to go through that uncomfortable experience of delaying that and letting the other things sift through and you still land on your first instinct,
Yeah.
I think that's pretty special.
Yeah, I think maybe I need to. just put some more thought into the way I approach that line of thinking. I think I need to maybe start by asking myself why is this my first instinct? And then what are the other feelings that I have about the hand? And then go back to the first instinct and say, do I still agree with my
Yeah.
initial thought?
It's
That's
just that,
probably a good way to approach it so
what's
that
that
I
word?
don't end up neglecting something that could have been uh, important and helped
Yeah.
me make a better
It's
decision.
like you're a scientist. You're going through the experimental process of proving it.
Yeah.
Like you have your first instinct, but you have the courage to go through the process to prove that like this is what you want to do.
Hmm.
I think I think that like when you talk about when you talk about like what you feel and your feelings in a hand and how like have you ever been in a spot where you have strong feelings about something? It can be whatever, about the hand or the person playing the hand, and you felt like your feelings for whatever reason like deceived you.
Yeah, definitely. Of course. I would say if you haven't experienced that, you haven't really played poker,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm.
But, that can come down to many things. It could be a false tell that somebody got you with. It could just be you basing this feeling off an untrue assumption. So I'm
Hmm.
definitely one to make assumptions and then stack more assumptions on top of that, sometimes too much.
Hmm.
So I think it's good to keep those things in mind, but if you're going to really veer far from the appropriate strategy for a given situation, then you need to have more than just an inkling or a feeling.
Hmm. Do you wanna play the game forever for a living?
I That's a tough question. I think the answer to that is probably no, but
Hmm.
I do want to play the game forever.
Hmm.
I just don't want to have to win. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? I will always want to win. I will always be excited about making more money from the game and just from the challenge of beating tough opponents and all that. But I am at the place in my poker career, I guess you could say, that I'm hoping and actively trying and working towards setting myself up in a way that I don't have to rely on poker
Hmm.
or income forever
Hmm.
because it's a very hard way to make a living, as I said. And it would be much more fun to not have to put in the same amount of hours and to be totally fine with losing and it's never going to matter anymore,
Hmm.
you know?
It's I think our I think our you've touched on winning a couple times. We have it's so interesting how our points of view on winning are so different. Um it's for me, uh at this point at 33, I don't I obviously I want to win, right? When I'm in a good space and I'm thinking about the right things, I'm not thinking about winning. Um, for me, it's most helpful, and everyone's different. For it's most helpful, like to touch on, I need to know why. I can't just skip. For me, I can't skip steps. I need to touch on every single step to get there. And so it's like I'm only when I'm in a good place, I'm only thinking about like
Your, pro-
winning as a byproduct.
your process. Is
Yeah,
that what
my
you mean?
process, yeah, my process is all not thinking about winning. It's only thinking about the spots. It's only thinking about what's happening now and dialing those things in. And I can't if I start thinking about winning, it puts me in a really bad place. And it's just like everyone's wired different.
Yeah, if I had to speak honestly about poker, that's what I'm attracted to most about the game
Hmm.
is winning.
Yeah.
It's just the process of winning is so fun for me.
Yeah.
I love it. It feels rewarding. I can sort of, when I have moments of doubt, I can look back on previous wins and cumulative wins and feel good about what I'm doing, even if I'm in a rough patch. So, um, if I had to say that there's like any part of this whole process that I'm addicted to, it's the winning. I
Yeah.
love winning.
Yeah, it's so interesting because the way you're wired, when I listen to you, is like you can think about the end goal, and it's so important to you that your
Use
process,
my
you
process to get there.
a
Yeah,
100%.
yeah,
And I can't do that because it's not important enough to me.
yeah.
So it's like I need to work the opposite way, and I'm just like, and then when I reach the end, I don't feel that good about winning. I really don't. I feel
Not that
proud of
I didn't
myself.
care about winning. I couldn't execute the process properly.
Yeah, that's so interesting. That's very interesting.
And it's
It,
like when I'm most focused and I want to win the most, that's when I'm like the most careful and methodical about the process itself.
hmm, that's
So,
that's super interesting. How we're just so different in that way, but it leads to the same good, right things.
okay, so then here's a follow-up question for you regarding that.
Yeah,
So you're sort of having your breakout performance right now, right?
yeah,
And you've had some wins.
yeah,
Do you think that your run in Cherokee that you had, where you got fourth, is that what you got?
yep.
Fourth? Came into play on the win that you had shortly thereafter in upstate New York.
Came into play in terms of my process and
Your
thought process.
yeah, just your sort of your state while you were playing, the way you approached the game. Did it give you more confidence? Did it do anything for you that helped you get to that next win? Or do you think those were two isolated incidences, events?
I think they definitely tied together. I think they tied together less than most people.
Yeah, because for me, they tie together so much.
Yeah,
When I'm winning, I get my confidence back. I start seeing things that I wasn't seeing before when I was having some negative trains of thought, and things really start clicking for me. And
yeah.
obviously, I'm not going to say that I mean, variance has been on my side in a big way as of late, and it's really a lot of fun. It's been a while since I've gotten to experience that again. But I also just really think that you get this extra confidence. You're willing to take the more wild spots when you're really getting hammered all the time. And it feels like every bluff spot, even when it's like a clear spot that you must take to bluff, you get destroyed. And they always have the top of the range, and they always call, and you always lose. You're sort of a little bit less trigger happy, let's say.
See, this is it's interesting that you say that because it shows me it's just another example of like given external results, everyone responds differently. So like you just expressed that, when you're getting crushed and it's like less bluffs, like all these things for me, when I'm getting crushed, it's less patience. Like I've experienced and more bluffs and going for it more and it's like kind of
I've
opposite.
I've done that too, but I guess it's like the bluffs aren't as good.
Mm,
You know
yes.
what I mean?
Yes.
You find these crazy creative spots where it's actually an epic bluff, but it didn't even occur to you when you're kind of in that slightly worse frame of mind, and now you're confident and you're thinking, well, what about this? This is actually kind of cool right here. I could do this. This is kind of a crazy thing to do, but this seems right. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas it's not like the other ones, like I have to bluff here. Let me just blast it in there.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's at least how it feels for me.
Yeah, like I think the biggest when you ask what, getting the fourth and tying into the first, I think that the biggest thing that has helped was being patient and allowing the game to come to me. And what the mechanism like what that creates is just allowing me to realize, always, so it's like for me my biggest struggle throughout poker for the bulk of my career was I played in a fashion that did not allow me to realize.
Okay.
And so, I would just, overbluff all over the place. There was like a stint of time where, and I still do, I still do,
Sure.
but it's like,
Now maybe you're thinking of the game in the bigger picture, and you're thinking, well,
yes,
this is a great time to overbluff,
yes.
and I'll overbluff in these spots now, and if I want, or maybe like you even think before that, hey, there's this time that's going to come up. If I can maintain my stack for the next hour, that it's going to be a great time to overbluff. Let me play extra tight now. You
Yes.
get to play extra tight, maintain your stack, and then overbluff in the overbluff time. Not only have, if your table is aware at all, have you built a tight image,
Yes.
but you've also been you've had a much higher chance of being able to maintain your great chip position, and now
Yes.
you get to wield that stack at a key moment in the tournament, at what I like to call inflection point.
Yeah.
And that, like thinking of the tournament in the bigger picture like that, I think is so much of what can truly drive some, consistent good runs.
You've always had that. I remember conversations with you. I remember conversations with you in 2015, 2016, 2017 when we weren't as close, but we would talk poker on breaks or whatever. You've always had such good big picture clarity, and it's never been hard for you. And that's something that I've always struggled with. I've always struggled, like I've always been very good where this very moment, how the most pressure executing in this very moment, the knowledge that I have, and it not being like I have this much knowledge but my in-game execution is down here. I haven't struggled with that much, but I have struggled with, future game things, big picture things, and now today it's starting to, come together a little bit, and I think that is massive.
Yeah, definitely. Wait,
Like,
so I wanted to ask you one thing that I've actually been meaning to ask you.
yeah.
And that one thing is, we had some conversations about max late regging and all that when we were in Florida. With these recent tournaments, you've had a bunch of success. Did you max late reg? Did you get in a little bit earlier? Did you feel like you were able to focus a little bit earlier? Or what was your approach there? Do you
Both
feel
of
like,
them I got in with 30.
okay,
So I mean, for me, kind of early.
yeah, so a little bit earlier.
For me, and those conversations that we have, I want you to know, like, it's not one ear out the other. It really isn't. Like, everything you say to me, I listen to and I take in, and it's slowly. I'm never going to be a very beginning of the tournament guy. Never. But if I can slowly move a little towards the middle, that's where I want to be. Like slowly, because I'm over here. I want to max late reg everything. I think the early levels are excruciatingly boring. I just want to like, it's just terrible for me. But I understand. I have the awareness of like the answer is always somewhere in the middle. I'm a true believer in that.
You know what's funny for me?
Yeah,
As I preach how important it is to get there early, I'm slowly moving towards the middle also, but
and that's
not
good.
really toward, not very far. But I'm just like, don't care about level one and two as much
I think that's
as I
good.
did.
I think
You
that's
know,
good.
I mean, I'm realizing now that okay, this is going to be a 12-hour day, and if it goes well, then I'll have a 12-hour day tomorrow. Maybe making today a 10 and a half hour day is going to be advantageous.
Yes.
Or I just really want to get a workout in because that's going to put me in a good headspace. And if I don't do that, and I don't like take a little bit of care of myself, have a good meal, do something physically active, and get in there, that's going to be worth it because the benefit that I'll get from that, the increased mental clarity, or just like I'll just feel a little bit better through the day and hopefully make better decisions. It's worth it.
A
It's what
hundred percent.
matters.
A
And
hundred
that's
percent.
I'm starting to realize that a little bit more as time goes by. It can't just be at every single tournament right when it starts every single time and still do all those things and get enough sleep.
Good
So,
luck.
yeah.
I mean,
So anyway,
and everyone, I have friends, like we're different in this aspect too. It's like you're very deliberate in the time you take off and then the time you play. And for me, it's like I want no off days because every day, because I get into every tournament so late, it's like I have so much time every day. I know I'm very laid back and I'm very chill in general, but I'm very methodical about the process I have in making sure that I'm mentally ready and I want to be there. And it's very consistent. I know what when I'm in a good place, I know when I'm in a bad, and I will always do what's necessary. And when I get in late, it's like I have an off day every single day. And it's just like everyone's different. If you're somebody, I would never preach, if someone asked me, should I get in early or should I max? Um, I would ask them a bunch of questions about themselves. If you're someone that feels behind when they get in late, if you ever have an inkling of feeling behind, Do not get in later.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the part like I just always want to be deep if possible, and I think if you get in late, you ensure that at least at that moment in time you're not deep. And I'm
Yeah,
saying truly late. And of course, I'll re-enter late, so um, I'll experience those moments. But I want to give myself every opportunity I have to get to the point where I could actually play the tournament and have 100 big blinds from start to finish. Those are my favorite tournaments. It doesn't happen that often, but sometimes it does, and man,
yeah,
is it a blast.
yeah,
You can you just get to think about really fun spots all the time. There's more to it. I love that.
yeah.
So,
Do you have any questions for me? Anything yanking at your heartstrings or your mind or?
no, not really. Just what's next for you? What are you playing next?
So let me tell you a story real quick. So I realized I need to get my real ID because I don't have a passport.
Okay.
And by May 7th, if you don't have a passport, you need a real ID to fly even domestically. So, and I'm not a line guy, and I don't think you know this about me, but I do not do lines. I don't like waiting. So I made an appointment at the DMV, and the closest one, since it was such short late notice, um, such short notice, was Corvallis. So I scheduled Corvallis last Friday. I swung through Newburgh, the town that I grew up in, and picked up my sister, and we had a great conversation on the way there. It was like an hour and a half or so. Um, got all my documents, walked in, we started the process. They looked at my birth certificate for a long time. And then they were like, yeah, this isn't gonna do. You need, because I'm adopted, so like my birth certificate is a New York State birth certificate, but it says origin Korea because I was born in Korea. And they were like, you need your naturalization papers or, proof of citizenship paper.
You've
And I
got a
was
whole
like,
bunch of paperwork to do.
yeah. So it was like, I
You
just
have
needed
that stuff?
that. Sorry?
You have all that stuff though?
Yeah, I have all that stuff. So we drove back, had another good talk, and I picked up that stuff from my mom, and then I booked an appointment on the following Monday, so a few days ago, and I got it all squared away. Another funny thing is when they took my picture, I was smiling. I was smiling. They took it, didn't work. Took it, didn't work. 7 times they took it. They said it didn't work. My eyes weren't big enough, and I was like, do you have any tape back there to like open up my eyes a little bit? And it was an Asian woman that was walking back there, and she laughed, and she was like, "Don't smile." She was like, "Don't smile." And I was like, "Okay." I wanted to smile in my ID picture, but she was like, "Don't smile." So I smiled a little less. Really opened up my eyes, and that one got through, and so I have my real ID, and so now I have to wait a couple weeks. I might go to the tail end of North Carolina.
I will be there.
You'll be there, or are you going to be there for the whole thing?
No, I'll get there on the 7th and play through the end.
Okay, I might be there for around that time, and then I might not though. I might just go to Commerce for Tournament of Champions, and then the main, and then I'm not going to stay for the post stuff. And then I'm going to Vegas on the 25th.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah,
So what?
so I'm doing the tail end of Cherokee, and then I'm going to Commerce straight from Cherokee, and then I'm going to take a break, and then I'm going to WSOP. Then I'm going to take one break, and I'm going to go a little bit later. I'm going to go on maybe the 5th or something. Skip a little bit, take a
You're
decent
late,
break.
Reggie.
Yeah, I'm going to late reg it, and then I'm going to finish it out. So I'll probably do two 2 week stints or something like that. But
See,
I don't
I
want to overdo it in Vegas. It's just not my jam.
see. I put so much important it in the actual tournament. You put more importance on the early levels, and then for when you take 5 steps back and on a macro level for a series, I put more importance on the early levels.
Yeah, do that. But I
I
mean,
just
that's such a massive series, and I know that I get burnt out, and I just know myself and how Vegas has been for me. And last year was the most I've enjoyed it. I stayed at a friend's house. I was able to escape the strip whenever I wasn't in a tournament, and I took breaks, and I felt way better about the whole experience. I ran a little better. I I didn't feel like I had to go from one tournament to the next and keep firing and blasting and what else am I doing other than going back to my hotel room kind of thing. Now I have, there's just some things to do off
Yeah,
campus, so to
yeah.
speak, and I just feel way better about it that way. And so I really go into that series trying to pace myself. I'm not that way with any other series, but I think the World Series is just there's so many events, and
Yeah.
it's so easy to get burned out that you really need to pace yourself. And it's taken me a long time to get there. And because of the fact that I know that I'm not actually wired to do that when I'm staying right at the casino, the only way I've found to do it is to force myself to leave the strip when I'm not playing and leave Vegas to take a break. Those
Yeah.
two things. And if
Yeah.
I do that and I tell people that's what my schedule is and I book the flights accordingly, I'm not going to veer from that.
Yeah, I have something to add to that. When I hear that, consistent thing, right? My What I find most interesting when you talk, right? We could be talking about anything. I like to I like to note when we have similarities, and I like to note when we have differences, and I think it's interesting because it's like everyone's different. And
Yeah.
for me, my heaven is to go to 3 properties every single day, dust everything, and then wake up the next day and it's like I need to do what I need to do. It's 2 weeks in, I'm dust, I'm withered as all get out. And
This is where we could not be more different.
I it's I wake up, don't feel great. How do I make myself feel great again?
Sit back down. I feel that too.
No,
Like
no,
I,
I know I don't sit back. It's not sit back down. It's everything leading up to when I sit back down.
okay.
For me, that's my process. It's everything I do, everything I experience, whether that's working out, whether that's, listening to music, whether that's having conversations, whether that's scoping, zooming out and reminding myself that this is just a moment of time and thinking about all the other things in my life, whether that's, thinking about what I can do better and focusing on like the real, micro parts of why these results are happening that I can control. Anything in those areas to make me feel like I'm ready to battle and play again. And it's just like I love it. I'm on the strip for if I'm there for the whole summer, brother, I'm gonna be in a hotel on the strip for 7 weeks. You guarantee it. And because I have my headphones on, right? Like I hate the walking through the casino and with all the slots and everything, but I have my headphones on. I have music that hits the vibe for me, hits my heart. I can be anywhere. I can envision that I'm on a beach. I can envision that I'm with my family. I can be at any place in my mind.
Yeah. That's a good way to be.
And that's why
I
it's like I want to be there. I'm there, I'm ready. I'm like we're in.
Yeah, I hear you. I guess I just need to kind of like sometimes it takes me a little bit of time to decompress from one, maybe not so much one tournament to the next, but one big chunk of time where I
Yeah.
really went all out. I find it to be draining mentally, and
Yeah.
then you go all out, and what usually happens in Vegas because it's so hard to break through to that point where you're really making money, and you go all out and you don't make money. I need a little bit of time to regroup to reapproach the next tournament and have the same strong mental game. So that's kind of why I need those breaks. But
And there's no right answer. That's the thing. It's like we have these conversations, right? And I'm not saying you do this, but like maybe less experienced players might do this, right? I'll share my take, and they'll listen to it, and they'll think, naturally, like, oh, am I doing something wrong? And it's literally if someone shares their take with you, you need to remember everyone's wired differently. And
yeah,
everyone
that's
has a
fair
different
too.
path to like where they get to where they need to be in that good zone. I will never be you and you will never be me. And that's just like there's beauty in that, and that's something to just remember.
Definitely.
Is there anything left before we close it out? That
No, I feel like we had a great chat. That was fun.
Yeah, like it was that was like man, I was so excited to have you on because just to get you in a space where I can like pick your brain about things. because I'm curious about you. You know, it's like, and if the reality is, if like no one watches this, man, like
Still a good time. Yeah,
I
still
got
a
to
good
know
time.
some things about you, you know, and
Yeah,
that's the only thing that I care about. And like, I'm sure that we're gonna do this again, even if it's not a podcast. Like, man, like, just having this call with you, like, I enjoyed it a lot.
yeah, man. Well, that's great, and hopefully I get to see you at a stop soon. So if you make it to Cherokee, we'll get to hang, and if not, I'll see you at Commerce.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, man.
All right, right on, Taylor. Have a good one.
All right. See ya.
Thanks.